Trucks recently have become insanely overpriced. My goal here is simple: take a cheaper, older, beat-up truck and get it to the point where it's reliable and doesn't look terrible. I bought this truck a few years ago, and for the most part only have done oil changes to it, as I use it just for work. But now I want to put some time into it, make it nice again, get some overdone maintenance done, and get this thing reliable and not looking like a hoopty. Here's just a basic list of the things that need to get done. The critical repairs are pretty much what I'm doing in this video, as well as some of the future-proof and stuff. Down the road I want to make some more videos of like making it nice, getting like stereo and all that stuff in there, but for now we're just gonna get it running good. And right now the biggest issues it has is a massive misfire because the intake gasket has a leak where the coolant gets into the cylinders and then just destroys the spark plugs and everything. So step one is taking the intake off, replacing all the spark plugs, replacing the gasket, and then that's pretty much the thing for reliability. While I'm in there, I changed out the rad because it had a pretty big hole in it that you'll see a bit later on, as well as I had to change out the fuel rail a little bit later in the video because there's a leak in it that I didn't know was there. Because before all you could smell was burning coolant, and then once I fixed that, put everything back together, it smelled just gas. So I was like, oh, alright. I changed the fuel rail too. There's the thing in the radiator that's destroyed, and then the key to this truck is rust is everywhere. So that's kind of my biggest fight with this truck, is using the extractor sockets to get most of the bolts out, as well as just brute force and just hatred, I guess. If it wasn't for that, everything on this truck would have been simple. So these bad boys are going to be a staple of this repair, since every bolt I assume is going to be stupid. So these, while I was in there, I decided to change out all the idler pulleys as well as the tensioner because they were pretty worn out. They were making a bunch of noise. So once you're in there, it's one of those things, it just saves you so much time just to do it now and get it driving just a lot nicer, not having those stupid noises every time you turn the truck on. And for whatever reason, the thermostat bolts were tight as hell. So bust out the old jack handle to get those off. Now, luckily nothing broke, which I'm very surprised about. These bolts super rusty. I tried to replace as many bolts as I could, but some of these are kind of hard to find, so I just got the cheapest, Home Depot bolts pretty much for a lot of these because that's all I could really get my hands on. That's gonna have to come off. On. For my truck, this fuel line was the worst part of the whole thing because holy crap, it was rusted on there and just so this hours of fight. Fuel line's the hardest part. I grabbed this tool. Mine is so rusty and stuck, so I grinded it down a bit so it was a little bit thinner. Put it on and grabbed a big pry bar. Hammered the shit out of it. That helped, and then used to flatten it as well. Just went between the two for like a couple hours. And I think I finally got it loose. Deal with it. The worst parts too is when I went to the junkyard to get a replacement fuel rail. It took 2 minutes to get that line off the junkyard on a not rusted out fuel line. And just made me very sad because I'd like to replace the whole fuel line just to make my life easier if I ever do it again, but that's a job for another day. Now, after taking off all the lines, all the bolts, intake's finally ready to come off. Honestly, it wasn't too bad. There were a couple of rounded bolts that I had to use the extractor on, which is expected. You can see how much rust is just underneath this thing, like the intake pores are just covered. Also, while I was in here, you can see that little coolant line that was down the middle. That also had a leak in it, so I had to replace that while I was in there, which luckily Easy fix. Just pop off the pipe while it's underneath the intake anyways. If you're doing this, I just recommend replacing it because it looks like they tend to be a common failure point where they rust out. You can see yeah, that was me trying to do a patch on the fuel rail just to get me to be able to drive a short distance, but it did not do a damn thing, so just parked her, took a different car to the junkyard to get a new fuel rail. All this stuff is pretty straightforward. Take the fuel rail off, pretty easy. Just the 4 bolts, and then just kind of slide it out from behind everything. I didn't really have to take much off for this one, just had to stake it through. Normally when you do a fuel rail and stuff, you change out all the O-rings on the injectors, but these ones, for whatever reason, were all still pretty pliable. They look good shape, so I just reused the OEM ones, because the ones I had to replace them didn't look as good, to be honest, so I just kept them. I don't have any leaks, so this is the one case where it was okay, but most of the time if it's old, it's going to be tough. This is another part where I had a massive vibration that you saw in the start of the video, and that was from the drive shaft itself having really bad U-joints. So I had to pop those off, like pop the front drive shaft off, and I'm just leaving that off until winter. I'll replace the U-joints and put it on for 4x4 in the winter. 4x4 is probably going to end up being its own video later on whenever we do the hub actuators and stuff like that. But that's, you know, this thing for now. Little start to get into the truck decent, but there's a lot more to do.